"Do you know what those shoes say about you?" Victor Hale asked softly, tapping the toe of Maya Ellis's torn sneaker with a polished fountain pen. The silver duct tape wrapped around the split sole caught the chandelier light before anyone looked at her face. A white service towel lay beneath her feet as though she were something that might stain the marble. Her black apron still held a folded receipt tucked deep inside the torn pocket, and the silver tray in her trembling hands never tilted enough to spill a single espresso. Then another voice, calm enough to freeze the room, spoke only 2 words. "Maya Ellis." Silence landed harder than shouting ever could. 3 hours earlier, Maya had arrived through the employee entrance before sunrise, the way she always did. The casino hotel still smelled of fresh polish, roasted coffee, and expensive perfume that lingered long after wealthy guests had gone upstairs. She slipped into the locker room, hung her faded gray hoodie on the only hook that hadn't broken, and stared at her shoes for a second longer than usual. The left sole had opened again during yesterday's walk home. She knelt on the cold tile floor and pressed another strip of silver duct tape across the split with careful fingers. It wasn't pretty. It only needed to survive one more shift. Everything in her life seemed to live one more shift at a time. Her mother's medication sat on the kitchen counter at home beside unpaid bills and a hospital payment notice she had folded so many times the paper had become soft around the edges. Maya never complained. Complaining didn't lower interest rates or refill prescriptions. It only wasted breath she needed to carry trays across polished marble floors. By 7:30, the Café Moretti dining room glowed beneath crystal chandeliers. Wealthy guests discussed stock markets over cappuccinos that cost more than Maya usually spent on dinner. She knew every table by memory, every regular customer's preferred roast, every chair that squeaked, every loose tile hidden beneath imported rugs. People assumed waitresses noticed nothing except orders. Maya noticed everything because invisible people always did. She noticed the elderly pianist whose wedding ring had grown loose over the winter. She noticed the bodyguard who never drank the coffee poured for him. She noticed which executives smiled with their mouths but never with their eyes. Most importantly, she noticed what powerful people believed no one beneath them would ever remember. Victor Hale entered the cafe exactly at 8. His charcoal suit fit perfectly. His smile fit even better. He greeted investors by name, complimented a hostess on her professionalism, and thanked the pastry chef loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. Kindness came easily to Victor whenever witnesses were present.
Cruelty preferat quiete moments.
"Morning, Maya," he said warmly, brushing invisible lint from his sleeve. "Would you step into the center for just a moment? I need everyone's attention." Several employees looked up. Maya obeyed because refusing managers usually became paperwork, and paperwork always found the poorest employee first. Victor unfolded a spotless white service towel onto the marble. "Stand here, please." His tone remained gentle enough to sound reasonable. "We're expecting important guests. Presentation matters. I'm sure you understand." She looked at the towel, then at her shoes, then back at him. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Even the espresso machine seemed quieter. Maya stepped onto the white cloth without argument. Victor lowered his eyes toward the silver tape wrapped around her shoe and smiled with the patient expression of a teacher correcting a child. "Our guests deserve elegance," he said. "Not reminders that standards can be flexible." Soft laughter escaped one corner of the room before disappearing beneath uncomfortable silence. Maya felt every stair settle first on her shoes, then climb slowly toward her face. Her fingers tightened around the tray until the polished metal pressed crescents into her palms. She wanted to disappear. Instead, she looked down. Something small had caught beneath the loose edge of the silver tape on her left shoe. It wasn't dirt. It was the corner of a folded thermal receipt with a table number that should never have existed. The corner of the receipt disappeared beneath Maya's shoe before Victor noticed her looking down. She did not bend for it. She did not give the room the satisfaction of seeing her scramble for paper like a woman caught stealing crumbs. She only shifted her weight, slow and careful, pressing the duct tape tighter against the marble. Victor was still smiling at the guests, but his eyes had changed. They had dropped to her left foot for half a second too long. "Mr. Moretti," he said, turning smoothly toward Dante. "I apologize for the interruption. I was handling a uniform matter before service became visible." The word visible settled over Maya like cold water. Visible was dangerous. Visible meant records, questions, cameras. Victor preferred his staff tired, grateful, and forgettable. A hostess near the pastry case whispered, "She's always bringing drama." The bartender wiped the same clean glass 3 times and did not look at Maya at all. Somewhere behind the swinging kitchen doors, the dishwasher thumped and hissed, a wet mechanical heartbeat under the silence. Dante Moretti did not move toward Maya. He did not raise his voice. He stood just inside the cafe entrance in a dark overcoat, black suit beneath it, 2 men behind him who looked less like bodyguards than closed doors. His eyes traveled once across the towel, the shoes, the tray, Victor's pen, the staff pretending not to watch. Then he asked, almost gently, "Why is she standing on a towel?" Victor gave a small laugh, embarrassed on Maya's behalf. "Because presentation matters. We had a complaint last week about muddy footprints near the VIP tables. I'm sure Maya understands. She has been under some personal strain." Maya felt the room accept that sentence too quickly. Personal strain was the polite way rich people made poverty sound like a character flaw. She lifted her chin. "There wasn't a complaint last week." Victor's smile thinned. "Maya, there was a changed shift log." Her voice was quiet, but it carried because everyone else had gone still. "My name was removed from closing service at 2 a.m., then put back in after payroll was submitted." A busboy looked up too fast, then down again. Dante noticed. He noticed everything. "You checked payroll?" he asked. Not accusing, not believing, just placing the question on the table like a blade. Maya swallowed. "No, sir. I checked the trash." A few people laughed under their breath, relieved to have permission to make her small again. Victor's eyes warmed with false pity. "She collects things. Receipts, old notes, little scraps. I've spoken to her about it. We try to be compassionate here." Maya's fingers tightened around the tray. The metal had gone cold against her palms. The receipt for table 12 printed twice. Victor's head turned slightly. "There was no table 12 this morning." "Exactly," Maya said. Dante's gaze shifted to the cafe floor plan mounted discreetly beside the host's stand. Table 12 had been removed 6 months ago during renovations. In its place stood a marble planter full of white orchids. He looked back at Maya, and for the first time, something in his face paused. Victor stepped forward, voice still soft, still clean. "Mr. Moretti," she's confused. "Long hours can do that, especially when someone has been asking for pay advances." Maya reached slowly into the torn seam of her apron and pulled out a hospital payment notice folded into a square no bigger than a matchbook. She did not unfold it. She only held it between 2 fingers. "You offered to make this disappear if I signed the new clock-out sheet." The room changed temperature. Victor's smile stayed in place, but the skin beneath one eye flickered. Dante saw it. He took out his phone, not hurried, not dramatic, and photographed the white towel beneath Maya's shoes. Then the floor. Then Victor's pen. "What time did the shift log change?" he asked. Maya looked down at her left shoe. The duct tape had loosened just enough for the receipt corner to show again. Black thermal ink. A table number that no longer existed. A timestamp from 2:13 a.m. And beneath it, printed where a server name should have been, was not Maya Ellis, but Dante Moretti. The name printed beneath the dead table number made the silence sharpen. Dante Moretti did not reach for the receipt. He looked at it the way a man looks at a locked door he does not remember building. Victor moved first, too fast for someone pretending there was nothing to hide. "That is obviously a system error," he said, his voice smooth but thinner now. "Old terminals misprint all the time. Maya wouldn't understand how back-end routing works." Maya kept her foot still, the receipt half-trapped beneath the silver tape, because if she bent down now Victor would take it before Dante could decide whether it mattered. The cafe seemed to hold its breath around the hiss of the espresso machine. Steam curled behind her like smoke. Her apron pocket hung open where the seam had torn from months of carrying pens, order pads, and bills she could not pay. She looked at the receipt, then toward the orchid planter where table 12 used to be. The machine only prints table 12 when the reservation code is typed manually, she said. A hostess near the stand swallowed. Victor's smile did not break, but his hand slid toward his jacket pocket. Dante saw the movement. Leave it. 2 words. Not loud. Not angry. Victor's hand stopped. Maya felt the weight of those words more than she felt the room staring at her shoes. Dante stepped closer, close enough now that she could smell winter air on his coat and the faint smoke of a cigar not yet lit. "How do you know that?" he asked. Maya's mouth went dry. No one in the cafe wanted her to answer. She could feel it in the way the bartender stopped wiping, in the way the hostess looked at the floor, in the way Victor tilted his head like a priest waiting for confession. "Because I reset the terminal after closings," she said. "When the screen freezes, it keeps the last ghost table in the memory. Table 12 was removed when the planter came in. It doesn't appear unless someone types the old code." Victor gave a soft laugh, the kind meant to tell everyone they could relax. "She's proud of herself for knowing buttons. That's all this is." Maya looked at him then, not with defiance exactly. Something quieter. Something that had survived too many rent notices to waste itself on rage. "No," she said. "I'm proud I noticed the syrup." The laugh died before it reached the corners of Victor's mouth. Dante's eyes moved to her. "What syrup?" Maya pointed toward the narrow hallway beside the service station, where the marble changed to black tile near the camera room door. "Caramel. From a macchiato I dropped at 2:13 this morning. I cleaned it because Victor said Mr. Moretti hated sticky floors. 10 minutes later, I saw the security monitor show that same spill fall again. Same shape, same drip to the left, same reflection from the exit sign." She swallowed once. Real spills don't happen twice. The room went so quiet the refrigerator behind the pastry case clicked like a gun. Victor's face softened into sympathy, and somehow that was worse than anger. "Maya has been exhausted," he said. "She works doubles she isn't built for, and I worry her stress is making ordinary things feel threatening." His eyes moved, briefly and deliberately, down her body before returning to Dante. "Some employees carry more than trays." A few people looked away from her then, ashamed but still obedient to shame. Dante did not. He looked at the hallway, then at the receipt, then at Victor's phone, face down now on the host stand where it had not been a moment earlier. "Show me the monitor." Victor blinked. "Of course. Security can pull it later. Now." The single word made the orchids seem artificial, the chandeliers too bright, the whole cafe suddenly smaller. Victor turned, still smiling, and led them toward the service station. Maya bent at last, quickly, and peeled the receipt from beneath her shoe. A thin strip of duct tape came with it, silver stuck across the timestamp like a bandage. She placed both on her tray. Behind the counter, the security monitor showed last night's empty hallway. Clean tile, closed door. No syrup. No Maya. No dropped cup. Victor exhaled through his nose, almost relieved. But Maya stared at the bottom corner of the screen, where the red exit sign blinked once every 5 seconds. Last night, during the spill, it had been blinking twice. The red exit sign blinked once, slow and clean, as if the hallway had never lied in its life. Maya stared at it until the cafe around her blurred into gold light and polished surfaces and faces waiting for her to be wrong. Victor stood beside the monitor with his hands folded in front of him, the picture of managerial patience. "There," he said softly. "No spill. No loop. No conspiracy. Just a tired employee under pressure." A woman in a cream pantsuit stepped from the VIP lounge before Dante could answer. Celeste Varon, the hotel's guest relations director, wore pearls at her throat and pity on her mouth, both perfectly arranged. "Mr. Moretti," she said, voice low enough to sound respectful but clear enough for the room to hear. "May I suggest we move this away from guests? We have investors arriving in 15 minutes, and this kind of scene can feel unsettling." Her eyes passed over Maya's shoes, then her apron, then the receipt in her hand. Not cruelly, almost worse, efficiently, as if Maya were a spill that needed a wet floor sign. "I'm not trying to make a scene," Maya said. Celeste smiled with practiced warmth. "Of course you aren't, but sometimes stress makes people feel cornered. I'm sure Victor can help you file whatever concern you believe you have through the proper channel." Proper channel. Maya nearly laughed. The proper channel had Victor's signature on it. The proper channel clocked her out before she finished mopping. The proper channel had searched her locker twice and called it random inspection. Victor opened a leather folder from the host stand and slid out a printed statement, already prepared, already waiting for her name. "This will settle the morning," he said. "It simply says you misunderstood a maintenance replay and regret interrupting service. No discipline today. I'll even approve 1 paid hour for the inconvenience." He placed a pen beside it like a gift. Celeste tilted her head. "That is more than fair." A few employees relaxed. One server whispered, "Just sign it, Maya." Dante did not speak. He stood half a step behind the monitor, his face unreadable, his silence spreading through the cafe like black ink in water. He watched Victor's hands. He watched Celeste avoid the receipt. He watched Maya look at the paper, then at the white towel still lying in the center of the floor like a small, clean accusation. Maya set her tray down without making a sound. The receipt rested on top of it, silver duct tape still. Clinging across the timestamp, her name tag had tilted sideways on her apron. She straightened it with 2 fingers before she touched the pen. For 1 second Victor's shoulders dropped, almost imperceptibly. Relief. That was the first crack. Maya picked up the pen and wrote 1 sentence across the bottom of the statement instead of signing her name. "I will not correct the truth into a lie." Celeste's polite smile froze. Victor reached for the paper, but Dante's voice stopped him. "Leave it." Again, only 2 words. Again, Victor obeyed too quickly. Maya slid the folder toward Dante, not Victor. "You asked how I knew," she said, her voice still quiet. "I knew because the receipt printer jammed after the ghost table printed. I had to open it with the manager key." Victor gave a small sigh, as if disappointed in a child. "Maya, employees are not authorized to handle manager keys. I didn't handle yours." She looked at the black lanyard tucked inside his jacket. "Yours has a brass ring. The one left on the printer had a red plastic tag." For the first time, Celeste looked at Victor instead of Maya. It lasted less than a breath, but Dante saw it. Victor smiled again, slower now. "Many departments use red tags." Dante turned toward the host stand. "Show me the spare key drawer." Victor moved before anyone else, opening the drawer with controlled ease. Inside were labeled hooks, spare pens, reservation cards, wrapped mints, and 1 empty space beneath a small printed label that read camera access. Victor closed the drawer halfway, but not before Maya saw the corner of a coffee receipt tucked under the mint tray. 2 cappuccinos, table 12, printed at 2:13 a.m. And this one did not have Dante's name on it. It had Victor's. Victor's name sat on the coffee receipt like a fingerprint he had forgotten to wipe away. For half a second, no one breathed. Then he laughed softly, not because anything was funny, but because powerful men often laugh when they need a room to remember who is supposed to be embarrassed. "That is a staff comp," he said, reaching toward the mint tray. "Managers run test receipts all the time. Maya sees paper and invents patterns. It's not malice. Anxiety." The word landed where he aimed it. Anxiety made her small. Anxiety made her unreliable. Anxiety made every true thing sound like a symptom. Maya did not answer him. She reached down instead, careful and slow, and peeled the coffee receipt from beneath the tray of mints before Victor could cover it with his hand. The paper was warm from the machine below the counter, still faintly curled at the edges. 2 cappuccinos, table 12, 2:13 a.m. Victor Hale. She placed it beside the first receipt on her silver tray, lining up the timestamps so even the hostess in the back could see they matched. Dante looked at both slips. He said nothing. His silence did not comfort Maya. It examined her. Victor folded his arms, still composed. "You'll notice," he said, "that neither receipt proves theft. Proves coffee was made. We serve coffee here." Celeste gave a small nod, eager for reason to return. "Exactly. We should be careful not to turn housekeeping confusion into accusation." Maya's thumb moved to the inside of her apron pocket. The seam had torn wider during service, and beneath the fabric, tucked behind a packet of sugar and a dull pencil, was the one thing she had promised herself not to show unless she had no choice. A hospital bracelet, pale blue, folded flat from being hidden too long. Her mother's name was printed across it in fading ink. Denise Ellis. Admission date. Discharge date. Medication schedule. At the bottom, handwritten in black marker by a nurse who had been kind enough to look Maya in the eye, was a balanced due date. Friday. Maya set the bracelet on the tray beside the receipts. The room shifted again, but differently this time. Some people looked away out of discomfort. Some looked closer because suffering, when folded into evidence, becomes harder to mock. Victor's face softened with professional sorrow. "Maya," he said, lowering his voice, "your mother's illness is private. No one here wants to shame you for financial stress." "You used it," Maya said. Her voice was quiet enough that the espresso machine almost swallowed it. "You told me if I signed the corrected shift logs, you'd make sure payroll approved the medical advance." Victor shook his head slowly, wounded by her ingratitude. "I offered help. That is very different from coercion." Dante's eyes stayed on the bracelet. Not on the hospital name. Not on the balance. On the date. He picked it up with 2 fingers, as if touching something breakable, and held it beneath the chandelier light. "This says Friday." Maya nodded once. "Yes. Payroll advances run on Thursdays." Victor answered before Maya could. "Too fast. Too clean." Dante looked at him then. Victor's mouth closed. The cafe became so quiet Maya could hear the ice machine drop a single cube behind the bar. Dante laid the bracelet back down, then turned his phone screen toward no one and tapped once. A photo, perhaps. A note. A memory filed away in the cold, private rooms of his mind. "Who approved the advance?" he asked. Victor smiled again, but now the smile had to climb uphill. "Accounting handles those matters." "Name." 1 word. Flat as stone. Victor glanced toward Celeste. Celeste glanced toward the VIP hallway. It was nothing, barely a flick of the eyes, but Dante followed it. At the far end of the hallway, behind smoked glass, stood Elias Rook, his longtime financial advisor, dressed in navy wool with one hand inside his coat pocket. The moment Dante looked at him, Elias turned away as if he had only been passing by. And in that movement, a red plastic key tag flashed once against his cuff. The red plastic key tag vanished behind Elias Rook's coat cuff, but not before Dante saw it. He did not turn toward him right away. He did not accuse. He did not let the room know where his mind had gone. He simply placed the hospital bracelet beside the 2 receipts and looked at Maya as if she had just handed him a map drawn in blood and coffee stains. "You wanted the advance?" he asked. Maya's throat tightened, but she shook her head. "I wanted my hours back." The answer settled differently than money would have. No greed. No performance. Just a woman asking for time no one had the right to steal. Behind the bar, the dishwasher started again, its low metallic churn filling the gap where conversation had died. Steam fogged the lower edge of the mirror. A spoon tapped once against a porcelain cup, then stopped. Dante turned his head slightly towards Celeste. "Close the cafe to walk-ins." Victor's eyebrows lifted. "Mr. Moretti, breakfast service." Now. Celeste moved first because people like her understood when elegance had become survival. The glass doors were locked from inside. The investors in the VIP lounge were asked to remain seated. Dante took Maya's tray himself, not as kindness, but as custody. Evidence did not belong in shaking hands once powerful men had noticed it. He set the receipts, the hospital bracelet, and the statement she refused to sign on the black marble counter. Then he removed his phone and made one call. "Nadia," he said. "His attorney." The name made Victor's face lose half a shade of color. Remote access. Payroll.
Cafe Moretti.
Last 6 months. Deleted entries first. He listened for 3 seconds.
No.
Quietly, he ended the call. Maya watched him work with a stillness that frightened her more than anger would have. Rage could be survived if you knew where it was pointed. This was colder. This was a door locking somewhere far away. Victor recovered well. He always did. I welcome an audit, he said, adjusting his cuff. Frankly, I've been requesting better systems for months. Maya's confusion may finally get us the support we need. It was almost beautiful how quickly he tried to stand beside the investigation instead of under it. Dante looked at him with no expression. Who had access to employee clockouts? Managers, accounting, occasionally finance, for corrections. Names. Victor paused. Not long enough for most people to notice. Long enough for Maya, because she had built a life reading pauses. Myself. Celeste for guest-related payroll disputes. Mr. Rook's office for budget reconciliation. Elias returned from the hallway as if summoned by his own name. His navy coat was gone now. So was the red key tag. Is there a problem? He asked, mild and polished. The voice of a man who had made entire rooms trust his numbers. Maya's fingers curled against her apron. She knew that voice. Not from meetings. Not from the floor. From behind the pantry door 2 nights ago, when she had been rinsing coffee grounds. From a filter and heard someone say, make it look like debt. Dante saw her hand move. Maya. She looked up. Don't soften it. She swallowed. I heard him. Elias gave her a kind smile, weary around the edges. You heard someone. This hotel echoes. Exhaustion and fear can shape sounds into familiar voices. Maya reached into the inner fold of her apron, behind the hospital notice, and pulled out an old phone with a cracked blue case. It was so cheap and battered it looked almost childish on the marble beside Dante's black phone. My locker was searched twice, she said. So I stopped keeping things there. Victor stared at the phone. This time he did not smile fast enough. Dante did not touch it. What's on it? Maya looked at Elias, then at Victor. The reason they needed me to look like a thief. The phone buzzed once against the counter. A tiny, ordinary sound. A notification lit the cracked screen. One saved audio file, recorded at 2:13 a.m., titled Table 12. Dante looked at the timestamp, then at Elias Rook, and in the long silence that followed, the most dangerous thing in the cafe was not what he said, but what he finally understood. He had trusted the man who knew exactly where the cameras went blind. The audio file did not play immediately. Dante let it sit on the counter between them, the old phone's cracked screen glowing under chandelier light while every person in Cafe Moretti pretended not to stare at it. Elias Rook adjusted his cuff. Victor folded his hands. Celeste stood near the locked glass doors with a smile that had gone careful at the edges. Dante looked at Maya. How long? He asked. 9 seconds, she said. Then the machine noise covers the rest. Victor exhaled quietly, almost relieved. 9 seconds sounded too small to kill a lie. Dante saw that relief and did not touch the phone. Instead, he turned to Elias. You said the hotel echoes. Elias smiled, grateful for reason. It does, especially near service corridors. Then repeat what you said 2 nights ago. The room went still. Elias blinked once. Excuse me? Dante's voice stayed mild. If echoes confuse her, repeat the sentence. Let's hear how close she was. A tiny red light blinked above the pastry case. Security camera 3. Victor noticed it. His eyes flicked up, then away. Maya noticed that too. She leaned closer to Dante. Not enough to seem dramatic, just enough to speak under the hum of the espresso machine. He holds keys with 2 fingers, she whispered. Dante did not look at her. Who? Mr. Rook. Like he doesn't want prints on them. Elias gave a soft laugh. This is becoming theatrical. No, Dante said. It is becoming clear. He picked up the old phone at last and set it beside a black leather folder Celeste had carried from the VIP lounge. The folder was face down, but a corner of paper had slipped out. Maya saw the number first because numbers were safer than faces. 12. Again. Not a table this time. A vendor code. Her eyes moved to the signature line.
Victor Hale.
Under it, another signature in blue ink, elegant and sharp. Elias Rook. Dante tapped the folder once. Open it. Celeste hesitated with her hand over the clasp. Mr. Moretti, vendor contracts are confidential. Not from me. She opened it. Inside was a service agreement for emergency camera maintenance billed to a shell vendor Maya had never heard of. The date matched her missing clockout. The amount was exactly $24,000. Maya's hospital balance was $2,400. The cruelty of the extra zero made her stomach twist. Dante turned one page, then another not quickly. Victor stayed quiet now, which made him look smarter and guiltier at the same time. Elias stepped forward. Routine budget routing. I can explain it upstairs. Explain it here. A phone vibrated on the counter. Not Dante's. Not Maya's. Victor's. No one reached for it. The screen lit for 3 seconds, long enough for Maya to see the message preview upside down. Did she play it yet? Delete access if needed. Victor turned the phone over with 2 fingers. Too late. Dante had seen the movement but not the words. Maya had. She picked up the silver tray and shifted it under Victor's phone, using the reflection to angle the screen toward Dante without touching what was not hers. It was a waitress's trick, the kind learned carrying water glasses through rooms where men thought the help had no eyes. Dante read the reflection. His expression did not change. That was how Maya knew it mattered. Victor, he said, call security and ask them to delete camera access. Victor's face tightened. Why would I do that? Because someone just told you to. Celeste inhaled sharply. Elias looked at Victor then only for a fraction of a second, but the glance had weight. Partnership. Warning. Blame. Dante slid the folder toward Maya. Which page is wrong? Elias's polite mask cracked. With respect, she cannot read vendor contracts. Maya looked at the paper. The words were dense, expensive, designed to make tired people surrender. But the signature line was simple. This page was replaced, she said. The staple holes don't match. Dante looked. 3 old holes near the top. 2 fresh holes slightly lower. A document changed after signing. The camera light above the pastry case blinked again. Elias saw it, then looked at Maya as if seeing her for the first time. Not as a waitress. Not as a poor woman in torn shoes. As a witness standing beside the only man in the room he could not afford to fool. The camera light blinked once above the pastry case, and Elias Rook finally understood that the trap had not been built for Victor. It had been built around him. Dante did not move for several seconds. The leather folder stayed open on the counter, the replaced contract page lying beside Maya's receipts, the hospital bracelet, and the old phone with its cracked blue case. All of it looked too small to damage men in tailored suits. That was the mistake powerful men kept making. They believed small things belonged to small people. Dante turned toward the locked cafe doors. Bring everyone in. No one asked who he meant. Within minutes, the staff stood along the walls, the VIP guests sat stiffly at their tables, and 2 security men brought in the night shift guard who had supposedly checked the camera room at 2:13 a.m. The white towel was still on the marble where Victor had placed it beneath Maya's shoes. Its corners had begun to curl from dampness, and the red-brown smear on one edge looked darker now under the chandelier light. Maya stepped toward. Victor's voice sliced in, polite and desperate. Maya, I really think you've been through enough humiliation for one morning. She stopped, looked at him, and for the first time did not lower her eyes. You put the towel there. The words did not sound angry. They sounded final. She stepped onto it again, torn shoes and all, but this time she carried the silver tray like evidence instead of service. On it were the receipts, the hospital bracelet, the old phone, and the page with the wrong staple holes. Dante stood beside her, not in front of her. Play it, he said. The old phone crackled. For 9 seconds, the cafe heard machine noise, a door beep, Victor's voice saying, use the old table code, And then Elias, clear enough to cut glass. Make it look like the fat girl stole it. Moretti won't question a waitress with debt. No one moved. Even the espresso machine seemed to have gone quiet. Dante's face did not change at first. Then the blood left it slowly, not from fear, but from recognition. Maya saw the exact moment he understood. This was not just betrayal. It was betrayal using his blindness as a weapon. Elias had not merely stolen under his name. Elias had studied what Dante failed to see, then built a crime inside that shadow. Dante looked at Maya's shoes, at the duct tape, at the towel, at the hospital bracelet with her mother's balance date folded flat from being hidden. His jaw tightened once. Pain moved across his face so quickly most people missed it. Maya did not. Invisible people learned to see what others threw away. Security footage, Dante said. One of his men connected a tablet to the cafe screen. The monitor above the bar came alive. There was the hallway at 2:13 a.m. There was Maya dropping the caramel macchiato and kneeling to wipe the syrup. There was Victor using a red-tagged keycard at the camera room door. There was Elias stepping in behind him with a coat over one arm. There was the moment the footage jumped, looped, erased. Then the restored backup continued. Victor opened the tip cabinet. Elias placed a sealed envelope into the drawer. The night guard looked away. And Maya, 10 minutes later, came back alone with a mop saw. The corner of the receipt under the machine, and slipped it into her shoe because she had nowhere else safe to put the truth. Celeste covered her mouth. The bartender whispered, "Jesus." Elias smiled faintly, the last reflex of a man who still believed language could save him. "Dante, this is being misread." Dante turned to him. Nothing in the room breathed. "No," Maya said softly. Everyone looked at her. Her hands were shaking now, but the tray stayed level. "It was read wrong for months. That's different." Dante lowered his eyes to the contract page, placed one finger on the mismatched staple holes, and pushed it toward his attorney on the phone screen. His voice was calm enough to terrify the room. "Lock every account he touched." "Lock every account he touched" did not sound like revenge. It sounded like a door closing in a room no one could enter again. Elias Rook was escorted out through the side hallway without handcuffs, without spectacle, without the dignity of explanation. Victor tried to speak 3 times. Each time, Dante looked at him, and each time the words died before they reached air. By noon, the board had been notified. By 1, Victor Hale was no longer general manager of Café Moretti. By 2, the payroll vendor had frozen every altered record, every stolen hour, every tip moved through a false adjustment. Maya stood behind the counter while numbers returned to names. Not employee IDs. Names.
Rosa Alvarez. Ben Carter.
Janelle Price. Maya Ellis. Hours appeared beside them like pieces of life handed back after being taken in silence. Some employees cried quietly. Some could not look at her. The bartender who had whispered earlier stepped forward first, his face pale with shame. "Maya," he said, voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I should have said something." She looked at him for a long moment. "Next time," she said. "Say it before the proof has to bleed." No one laughed. No one looked away. Dante stood near the service entrance with his attorney on speaker, signing nothing until every correction was written clearly. Tip money was returned with interest. Clockouts were restored. Staff lockers were replaced with secure ones only employees could open. Payroll disputes would no longer pass through managers. Medical advances could not be used as leverage. Every employee received a direct line to Moretti Legal, printed on a card small enough to fit behind a name tag. But when Dante approached Maya, he did not offer cash first. He placed her mother's hospital bracelet on the counter, beside a folder from his attorney. "Protected payment plan," he said. "No debt collector calls. No manager touches it. Your mother's care continues through the casino health fund until your benefits update." Maya stared at the folder. Her eyes burned, but she did not let tears fall. "I didn't ask you to buy my life." Dante's face tightened, not offended. Corrected. "No," he said. "You asked me to stop letting men steal it." That was the closest thing to apology his voice knew how to hold. Later, in front of the entire staff, Dante had the white towel placed on the counter, not under Maya's feet. The torn shoes sat on top of it, cleaned but not repaired, the silver duct tape still wrapped around the split sole. Beside them lay photocopies of the receipts, the key log, the old phone transcript, and the contract page with mismatched staple holes. Evidence, not shame. Dante turned to the room. This cafe stays open because Maya Ellis saw what I failed to see. He looked at the staff board mounted behind the host stand. Celeste, eyes red and humbled, replaced the old printed schedule. Where it had once said Server 14, it now read Maya Ellis, floor lead. Maya touched the letters once, lightly, as if making sure her own name would not disappear. That evening, after the last guest left and the chandeliers dimmed, she hung her clean apron on a brass hook that had been labeled with her name. Dante set a hot coffee on the counter, black, no sugar, the way she had poured his without ever being asked. Maya looked at the old shoes inside their glass case near the staff room door. For the first time all day, her hands were still. They carried me when nobody else would, she said. Dante said nothing because silence finally had learned to listen.